Chosen one, they thought you were slow. But what if I told you your soul was simply too advanced for their system? You sat in those classrooms, listening to lectures that never seemed to speak to you. Felt like you didn't belong, like everyone else was marching to a rhythm you couldn't hear. But let me be clear, you weren't failing. The system was failing you. School was never designed to measure the kind of intelligence you possess. It wasn't built to see the depth of your insight, the unique way you process the world, or the higher calling you've always felt deep inside. Now, for the first time, these hidden truths are coming to light. Today, we'll reveal the real reason you never thrived in school, why their judgments never defined you, and how your experiences were always pointing towards something greater. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll finally understand why your struggles in school were a sign of your true purpose. If you resonate with what you're hearing, take a moment to like this video and comment 77. Share this message with others who need to hear it, and if you find value in our content, please click the super thanks button. A special thanks to our membership subscribers, you make this possible. If you're not a member yet, consider joining us by clicking the link in the description below. You've spent long enough doubting yourself, questioning your worth. It's time to shift that narrative. What you're about to hear could change how you see your past and your future forever. Your mind was ahead of time. From the earliest moments, your mind functioned on a plane that defied their expectations. While others found comfort in simple answers, you sought deeper truths. Sitting in those classrooms, you weren't just memorizing facts or chasing scores. You were pondering why those facts mattered in the first place. The system couldn't see it, but you were never distracted. In fact, you were fully absorbed in an inner world of ideas that went far beyond the surface. They mistook your questions for confusion, your curiosity for weakness. But your experience wasn't one of failure. It was one of seeing the world in ways they never could. Their tests were narrow, their measurements shallow, and your brilliance simply wouldn't fit in their boxes. Imagine the frustration of constantly being misunderstood. You weren't trying to be different, you just were. While others focused on regurgitating answers, you were asking why the question mattered at all. The system wasn't equipped to handle someone who didn't follow the template. And so, year after year, you found yourself on the outside, feeling as if something was wrong with you. That emotional weight, the confusion of wondering why you couldn't just get it like everyone else, settled into your heart. But deep down, you always knew it wasn't that you couldn't get it. It was that the system couldn't get you. You weren't slow or behind. You were on a completely different wavelength, and they didn't know how to tune in. Looking back now, it's clear that your struggle was never about a lack of intelligence. Proverbs 4 verse 7 reminds us that wisdom is the principal thing, and you've always had wisdom. But their world didn't know how to measure wisdom. It could only measure memory, repetition, conformity. The deeper questions you asked, the broader perspectives you held, weren't things that their grading scale could quantify. Your mind was processing concepts on a level that was beyond what they taught. They judged you because they couldn't understand you, not because you lacked understanding. That tension, being seen as less when you were, in fact, more, is what made you feel out of place, but it was never a sign of your failure. It was a sign of your potential. You've started noticing it now, haven't you? The way your thoughts have always followed patterns others don't see, the way you connect dots that seem invisible to everyone else. It's not just that you think differently, it's that your thinking points toward a deeper truth. You're beginning to see how those struggles in school, those moments of confusion, were actually moments of preparation. They set the stage for the transformation that's unfolding now. When they dismissed you as distracted, they failed to see that you were focused on a higher path. And now the signs are emerging. Opportunities that once felt out of reach now feel inevitable. The same system that once confined you is irrelevant. You're growing in ways they never could have measured, and the timing of your growth is aligning perfectly. It's no coincidence that you're coming into clarity now. What once felt like chaos is beginning to make sense. You can feel it, can't you? That pull towards something greater, that undeniable sense that your life is taking shape in a way that was always intended. This is divine intervention. The forces that once seemed to work against you were actually setting the stage for your breakthrough. Think of Joseph's story, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Yet in Genesis 41 verses 39 to 41, we see him rise to a position of incredible influence. Your journey is no less guided. The struggles weren't random, they were orchestrated. The delays weren't denials, they were preparations. The interventions are subtle yet undeniable, and they're shaping a path that's uniquely yours. Now comes the pivotal moment, the moment where you must fully embrace what's happening. It's easy to second-guess yourself, to wonder if you're imagining these shifts. But this is real. The transformation is happening, and you need to step into it fully. It's time to stop waiting for permission or for further confirmation. True alignment requires trust. It requires saying, "Yes, I see the signs and I will follow them." So many people resist change, holding on to old patterns because they fear the unknown. But your path isn't about fear, it's about faith. This is the moment where you decide to step into your calling without hesitation, where you accept that you were always meant to walk a different path. Now that you see the picture clearly, it's time to move forward. Take the next step boldly. You've spent long enough doubting your own mind, questioning your own worth. Release that doubt. Let go of the fear that's held you back. You're not just another face in the crowd. You are chosen, and that means something. Start trusting that your way of thinking, your perspective, and your journey are exactly as they were meant to be. Start leaning into the opportunities, the connections, the growth that's now unfolding before you. Don't hold back. Embrace your gifts. Deepen your spiritual practice. Begin living the life you've always known you were meant to live. The time is now. So what does all of this mean? It means you were never broken. You were never slow. You were never a failure. The world may not have recognized your genius, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. It was always there, waiting for the right moment, the right conditions to fully bloom. And now that time has come. Your mind, once misunderstood, is now a source of strength, clarity, and purpose. Everything you've gone through was preparing you for this moment. So if this resonates with you, comment wisdom. Let the world see that you know who you are. You are chosen and you are ready. You felt spiritually misaligned. From the moment you walked into a classroom, something felt off. It wasn't just about the subjects being taught or the way the lessons were delivered. It was deeper than that. You looked around and saw others absorbing the material, following the rules, and moving along without question. But for you, each day felt heavy, like you were wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. The weight wasn't physical, but you felt it all the same. You couldn't explain why it seemed so easy for others to go through the motions while you carried a constant sense of unease. But deep down, you knew it wasn't because you were less capable. It was because something in the environment failed to touch the part of you that mattered most, your spirit. That sense of misalignment wasn't just frustrating. It was isolating. You would sit there, surrounded by people who seemed perfectly fine, while you wrestled with a feeling of being out of place. It made you question yourself, wondering if you were the only one who couldn't seem to settle into the pattern. The world told you that fitting in meant success, and yet every attempt to conform only made you feel further disconnected. It wasn't about being rebellious or difficult. It was about an internal knowing that this wasn't where you were meant to thrive. Each day, the silence grew louder, and the gap between you and the environment widened. But what if that gap wasn't a mistake? Matthew 6 verse 22 reminds us that the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. What you experienced wasn't a flaw. It was a sign that your inner sight was already attuned to something greater. While others moved forward without question, you were seeing beyond the surface. You sensed that there was more than just grades, rules, and routines. That spiritual perception, though unrecognized by those around you, was a gift. It set you apart and allowed you to see the cracks in a system that couldn't nurture what you carried inside. The signs of this spiritual disconnection were always there. Every time you walked into a classroom and felt that invisible weight, you were feeling the pull of a higher calling. You might not have recognized it at the time, but that discomfort was your soul's way of telling you that this wasn't your path. The emptiness you felt wasn't because you lacked something. It was because the world around you lacked the ability to reflect the deeper truths you held within. That nagging feeling, the sense that you were different, it wasn't an obstacle. It was the beginning of your awakening, a shift in perspective that would eventually lead you to your purpose. This sense of spiritual misalignment wasn't a punishment. It was a preparation. Over time, you began to realize that the disconnect wasn't random. It was a sign that higher forces were already working within you. The very traits that made you feel out of place were the ones that would later guide you toward a life filled with meaning. What seemed like rejection was actually a redirection. The moments of confusion, the sense of not belonging, were quietly orchestrating your path. They were shaping you into someone who could see the world with clarity and compassion. The feeling of being different wasn't something to resist, it was something to embrace. But here's the thing, recognizing this shift is only the beginning. Now you must fully step into it. Many people spend their lives trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for them, afraid to let go of what feels familiar. But the truth is, growth often means leaving comfort behind. This is the moment where you acknowledge that your path has always been different. The misalignment you felt wasn't a flaw, it was a call to rise higher. And now you have the choice to lean into that calling, to see it not as a burden, but as a sacred responsibility. So what's the next step? It's time to release the doubt that has held you back. It's time to trust that the discomfort you once felt was leading you to something far greater. You can let go of the idea that you need to blend in or measure up to someone else's standard. Instead, embrace your unique perspective, your spiritual insight, and your ability to see beyond the obvious. The world needs that light you carry. By stepping into your truth, you not only free yourself from the weight of misalignment, you become a source of guidance for others. What does all of this mean for you now? It means you were never broken. You were never lost. That constant feeling of being out of step wasn't a failure. It was a sign that you were meant to walk a different path. Your spirit was never meant to be confined by the walls of a classroom or the narrow expectations of a system. You are here for something much greater, and now is the time to embrace that truth. If this resonates with you, comment light. You were never meant to blend in, you were always meant to shine. You questioned authority. From the very beginning, you felt the urge to ask questions that others wouldn't dare to voice. It wasn't that you were trying to be difficult or rebellious. It was that you genuinely needed to understand why things were the way they were. While your classmates nodded along, memorizing answers and moving forward without hesitation, you hesitated. You asked, why? Why was this the rule? Why was this the answer? Why did things have to be done a certain way? You couldn't settle for superficial explanations because deep down, you knew there had to be more. This need to question wasn't always easy. It put you at odds with the system and sometimes made you feel isolated. Teachers would look at you as though you were being defiant. Your peers would shrug off your questions, content to follow the established path. But for you, staying silent felt impossible. That tension, the sense of being the only one who didn't accept the easy answer, was frustrating, even painful at times. It left you wondering if you were simply out of step with everyone else or if there was something wrong with you. Yet despite that, you couldn't stop asking. It was as though your inner voice refused to be silenced. What you may not have realized then is that your questioning was a gift, not a flaw. Jeremiah 33 verse 3 tells us, "Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." This verse wasn't just a comforting thought. It was a confirmation that your curiosity was divinely inspired. Your hunger for deeper truths wasn't a mistake. It was a sign that you were listening to something higher. While others were content to accept what they were given, you were seeking the unsearchable. You weren't just asking questions. You were calling out for understanding, for wisdom, for clarity that the world around you couldn't provide. Looking back, the signs of this deeper wisdom were always there. Every time you refused to accept a surface-level answer, every time you pushed for more, you were stepping into your role as a seeker of truth. Your teachers may have seen it as a challenge to their authority, but in reality, it was your higher self refusing to conform. You were being prepared to think critically, to see through illusions, and to understand the world in a way that most never will. That refusal to settle for less than the truth wasn't a rebellious act. It was a sign that you were destined to walk a different path. Over time, you began to notice that this questioning spirit wasn't just about defying the system. It was about uncovering something deeper, something real. You may not have had the words for it then, but you were beginning to understand that the world's rules weren't the only ones that mattered. There was a higher order, a spiritual truth that didn't always align with what you were being told. This was divine intervention at work. It wasn't random. It was a deliberate process designed to prepare you for your purpose. The very challenges you faced, the resistance you met, were shaping you into someone who could see beyond the surface and follow a higher calling. As you come to understand this, it becomes clear that your questioning wasn't just a phase, it was a step toward awakening. It was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about seeking what was right. And now, as you look back, you realize that the discomfort you felt was a necessary part of your journey. It wasn't meant to be easy. Growth rarely is. The questioning, the doubt, and the friction all serve to sharpen your mind, deepen your spirit, and align you with your higher purpose. This is the moment to embrace what once made you feel out of place. This is your time to own the fact that you've always been called to search for more. So, where do you go from here? You move forward with confidence. Now that you understand the true reason behind your questions, you no longer need to feel conflicted. Trust that the path you've been walking, though difficult at times, has been leading you exactly where you're meant to be. Use this understanding to fuel your next steps. Allow your curiosity to guide you, but now do so with a sense of purpose. You're not just seeking answers. You're uncovering truth, wisdom, and the deeper meaning behind it all. Let go of the fear that questioning authority will leave you lost. Instead, see it as a gift that will continue to guide you toward clarity, growth, and fulfillment. In the end, your journey of questioning authority was never about rebellion. It was about revelation. It was about uncovering the wisdom that was always meant to be yours. Each question you asked, each answer you sought, was part of a greater plan to help you see the world more clearly. So if this resonates with you, comment truth. Let others see that you are ready to embrace your role as a seeker of higher understanding. You were never lost, you were always looking in the right direction. Your intelligence was emotional and spiritual. From an early age, you recognized that your mind worked in a way that didn't fit into traditional expectations. While others were busy memorizing dates, formulas, and vocabulary lists, you found yourself wondering why these things mattered and how they connected to the bigger picture. It wasn't that you couldn't remember them, you simply needed to know their significance before they could hold any value for you. There was a part of you that sensed the world operated on levels far deeper than what was written on the chalkboard. The system around you wasn't designed to measure emotional understanding or spiritual depth, so it left you feeling as if you were falling short. But in truth, you were tapping into an entirely different kind of intelligence. That disconnect between your intelligence and the system standards created its own emotional weight. Watching your peers excel at tests that relied on rote memory often made you question yourself. You felt that you were supposed to follow their path, and when you didn't, you wondered if you were somehow lacking. But deep down, you knew there was more to understanding than scoring high on exams. You weren't just processing information, you were processing meaning. You were absorbing the energy behind words, the emotions behind actions, and the spiritual truths that went unspoken. While others celebrated their grades, you often felt as though you were chasing something more meaningful, something that couldn't be graded or written down. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 14 reminds us, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness." This passage reflects the experience you've always had. Your intelligence has never been confined to what could be easily explained or taught through textbooks. It was rooted in the Spirit, in that deep, intuitive understanding that defies logic. You were reading between the lines, sensing the energy behind events, and connecting with a wisdom that came from beyond the material world. While others saw this as strange or unmeasurable, it was a profound gift, one that aligned you with truths that were often hidden from view. Over time, you began to notice the ways this spiritual and emotional intelligence revealed itself. You'd feel the energy of a room before anyone spoke. You'd understand what someone truly needed, even if they couldn't put it into words. Your insights often went unacknowledged, not because they weren't valid, but because the world around you didn't know how to interpret them. You'd offer a perspective that came from a place of love and intuition, only to see it brushed aside in favor of more practical answers. Yet, Those moments of clarity, those intuitive flashes that others dismissed, were signs of the divine at work within you. You were being prepared to live by a higher truth, even if those around you couldn't see it. What you may not have realized then is that this spiritual intelligence was part of a larger plan. The moments when you felt overlooked or misunderstood were not moments of failure. They were moments of shaping. Each time you trusted your inner knowing, each time you followed your intuition instead of the crowd, you were strengthening the very abilities that would one day guide you. What seemed like a struggle was actually divine preparation. Your experiences taught you to trust the unseen, to listen to the whispers of the Spirit, and to move forward even when others doubted you. That process, though painful at times, was necessary to align you with your calling. As you look back, you may see now that the intelligence you carried was never meant to be confined by the traditional classroom. It was meant to be nurtured by your experiences, your reflections, and your connection to Spirit. You've grown into someone who understands that true intelligence isn't just about solving problems on a test. It's about feeling the energy behind them, seeing the patterns, and understanding the higher purpose behind it all. This isn't something that can be taught in a school, and that's why you struggled to fit into their mold. But now, you know that your intelligence wasn't about fitting in, it was about standing apart, about holding the key to something deeper. Now that you understand the true nature of your intelligence, you can move forward with confidence. Embrace the ways you think and feel. Trust your instincts, and know that your emotional and spiritual wisdom is a gift, not a limitation. Let go of any doubts that the system instilled in you. Begin to see your unique perspective as the powerful tool it is. And as you step into this awareness, you'll find that your true classroom is all around you. Every experience, every connection, every quiet moment of reflection. Each one is teaching you, guiding you, and helping you grow into the person you were always meant to be. In the end, you were never lacking. You were never behind. Your intelligence, shaped by emotion and spirit, was never something that could be graded or quantified. It was something greater, and now you have the understanding to see it for what it truly is. So if this resonates with you, comment Spirit. By doing so, you acknowledge the strength and beauty of your unique mind. You've always been different, and that difference is your greatest gift. You were meant for a different classroom. From the very start, you sensed that your true lessons didn't come from textbooks or chalkboards. You'd sit in those classrooms, watching others fill in the blanks and memorize the answers, and you couldn't help but wonder if there was something more. For you, real understanding came in those unexpected moments. When life presented a challenge, when you had to confront your doubts, when you wrestled with questions that didn't have easy answers. It was during these times that your spirit grew, that you learned to see the world in a way that no school could teach. That quiet, intuitive voice inside you always knew. You were never meant to learn by their rules. This feeling wasn't without its struggles. The world around you placed so much value on grades, rankings, and standardized achievements, and it often made you feel as if you were somehow failing. Watching others excel in that environment, seemingly at ease while you felt out of step, left a mark. There were moments of doubt, times when you questioned your worth because you didn't measure up to their standards. But the truth was, you weren't meant to measure up. You were meant to step beyond, to learn in ways that couldn't be quantified, to gain wisdom through experience rather than instruction. Isaiah 55 verses 8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." This passage reflects the divine truth that your path was always different. You were never supposed to learn like everyone else. The lessons meant for you didn't come with answer keys or report cards. They came through life's trials, through your spiritual growth, through the unique perspective you brought to each challenge. What others might see as falling behind was actually you walking a path that was never meant to be compared to theirs. It was, and always has been, your own sacred journey. As time passed, the signs became more evident. The wisdom you gained through personal struggle, through self-reflection, through moments of awakening, this was your true education. You began to see how those experiences shaped you in ways that no formal lesson ever could. Instead of relying on external validation, you started trusting your inner knowing. The growth that happened during those moments of silence, those moments of questioning and seeking, became your foundation. And even though it may have taken time to see, You now recognize that those lessons were infinitely more valuable than anything a classroom could have provided. This wasn't random. Your path was never an accident. Every struggle you faced, every question you asked, every obstacle you overcame, these were all part of a greater design. You were being prepared for something beyond the ordinary, something far more meaningful. The world's systems couldn't teach you what you were meant to learn. Only life, guided by divine wisdom, could do that. The seemingly wasted time spent feeling out of place was not wasted at all. It was shaping you into someone who could see what others couldn't, who could understand what others overlooked. As you step back and reflect, it's clear that you were always meant to be a student of life. The traditional classroom couldn't hold you because your soul was already aligned with a higher purpose. Now that you see this, it's time to embrace it fully. Let go of the doubts that held you back. Release the need to conform to the standards of a system that was never meant for you. Instead, honor the path you've walked and the lessons you've learned. Understand that the challenges you faced were not roadblocks, they were stepping stones. You've grown through them and you're still growing now. What's next for you? It's time to trust yourself completely. It's time to see your life as your greatest teacher and to value the wisdom you've gained along the way. Let go of the labels, the judgments, the comparisons. Stand tall in who you are, knowing that your way of learning, growing, and understanding is valid, powerful, and exactly what it was always meant to be. And with that knowledge, move forward boldly, knowing that you are equipped to handle whatever comes next. In the end, you were never behind, never less than, never failing. You were simply walking your own path, one that didn't require a classroom or a curriculum, but instead required you to live fully, to reflect deeply, and to trust in the divine plan for your life. If you feel this truth, comment, "I am chosen." You were never meant to fit into their world. You were always meant to create your own. This realization that you were meant for a different classroom also sheds light on your purpose. You weren't simply set apart to feel different. You were set apart to lead, to guide, and to inspire. Your journey through life, marked by its unique lessons, was meant to equip you with wisdom that others might not understand at first. The insights you've gained were never just for you, they were meant to be shared. You've been shaped into someone who can help others see what they might otherwise miss, and that calling is a sacred responsibility. In these moments of clarity, you also begin to appreciate how far you've come. The struggles that once felt overwhelming now appear as stepping stones, each one necessary to bring you to where you stand today. It's not just about what you've learned, but about the strength and resilience you've gained along the way. You can look back and see how each challenge prepared you for the next, how each piece of wisdom deepened your understanding, and how each step forward brought you closer to the purpose you're now embracing. What lies ahead is a life lived with intention. You are no longer bound by the expectations that others tried to impose on you. Instead, you walk forward with confidence, trusting that your journey, though unconventional, was always guided by a higher hand. This path, with all its twists and turns, has uniquely prepared you to live authentically, to grow spiritually, and to impact the world in ways that no one else can. You've stepped into a classroom that's infinitely larger than anything you've known before. So as you continue on this journey, remember that you've already proven you can learn, grow, and thrive outside of the traditional mold. Every lesson you've encountered, every insight you've gained, has brought you to this moment. You were meant for more, and now you're ready to fully embrace it. Trust in the wisdom you carry, follow the guidance that's always been within you, and know that your best days truly are ahead. And now, as you move forward, let this be a time of honoring your own path. The lessons you've learned, the strength you've built, and the wisdom you've gained have not only shaped who you are, but they've also positioned you to create the life you were always meant to live. You are stepping into your purpose, no longer tied to old labels or limits, but walking freely into a future that aligns with your deepest truths. This is your moment to own your story fully and to live with the knowledge that every step you've taken has brought you closer to your true self. So today, as you reflect on how far you've come, remember that your journey was never meant to be ordinary. It was designed to be extraordinary, filled with challenges that shaped you into a person who can handle the unique calling on your life. Trust that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, and know that your path, no matter how different or unconventional, is the one that will lead you to the fulfillment you've been seeking. This is your time.